Kamen Rider Drive is amazing, and you can't tell me otherwise. This series has a lot of good aspects that I love about Kamen Rider as a whole. For example, good characters, good writing, and of course a silly costume/suit design. This series has weird costumes and I love it. I can assure you that if you show these 3 pictures to any non-Kamen Rider fans, they'll be weirded out. This season is the 16th series of the Heisei era, aired on October 5, 2014. It's a detective police show with 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘦 as the villains, Drive as the hero, and Car Toys as the merchandise. This season's gimmick is weird. When I first saw this season's rider, I was like, okay, they ran out of ideas. I mean, look at those suits! Look how silly they were! Even now, I still laugh about how ridiculous those costumes were. Then, I decided to watch the show, and I was hooked from the very first episode. I love the premise of the show, I love the cast, I love the pacing, and the setting of this season, which sets in a more real-life world just like Double and Kuga. Anyway, let's just jump right into it. The first aspect that I want to talk about are the characters. I love the characters in this series. They are amazing, and I love them very much. First of all, you got the typical hero and heroine duo, the team that aided the Kamen Rider, hyperactive secondary rider, the 3 totally not gay dudes, and the villains, 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘦𝘴. Let's start with Shinnosuke, the main guy for this season. As a police officer, Shinnosuke is capable of always maintaining his level-headedness. His detective skills and sense of justice are what make him a good and lovable character. The same goes for Kiriko, although her stoic personality makes her kinda hard to approach. Shinnosuke and Kiriko's relation, for me, just works. Shinnosuke is the slacker type of guy, while Kiriko is more straight to the point. They always work together and support each other. And as time goes on, you can see how Kiriko always pushes Shinnosuke to be better as a person and as a police officer. The team is also there to provide backup to Shinnosuke as he cannot work alone. He needed help as much as possible. Speaking of team, the Special Investigation Division is filled with gorgeous casts. Their main purpose was to enlighten the show, and it works for me. I think it's one of those things that I enjoyed while watching Kamen Rider Drive. It's what keeps me going, at least. I love seeing them on the screen, especially Lieutenant Ota, Kyutaro, and Jun. Many people don't like Jun, and I can see why. However, if you can tolerate the whole Japanese slapstick/comedy, you'll find it funny. Shigimago's cheerful character is also suited for the show. He's an impetuous man with more flexibility, no pun intended, since he isn't in the police force. He always has his own way to solve the case, and potentially could get in trouble caused by his own reckless decision and arrogance. Chase is an interesting antagonist, later interesting protagonist. And as time goes on, we can see his growth as a character every time he tries to search for his real self. We'll talk about it later on. His partner in crime, Heart, Brain, and Medic are not just some your typical generic antagonists for a Kamen Rider series. His boss, Heart, is not just evil. He's also charismatic. He's the calm-mannered antagonist for this season. He also spouting a bunch of nonsense, but you won't find him annoying and boring as a character. Brain, as the name implies, is the smart guy in this team. He likes to do his own things, and he thinks 2 steps ahead from the rest of his crewmates. Medic is cute. It's whatever. She thinks highly of herself, and she only wanted to please Heart. I don't know, for me she could be better in this season. Now, let's talk about the plot. How good is the plot for Drive? For me, I think it's good enough. It keeps me entertained until the end of the season. I never got any boring moments from this series, and I genuinely enjoyed the hell out of this show. Maybe because I'm a bit biased towards detective story and police story. They also didn't push the story to its limits. It's good. What I mean by that is that they didn't try to make the story too hard to follow and too complicated for 48 episodes. They don't necessarily trying to make the story deeper with its police theme storytelling. I hope that makes sense. Each of the episode is fun, charming, and intense. It's not like every episode the story progresses too much that you're starting to get overwhelmed by the plot, by the sheer amount of exposition. It doesn't feel rushed at all. But then again, it's a kids show. They played it safe, with a basic one villain per week. Well, for this case, it's one villain per 2 episodes. And they pull it off. This route they're taking, the realism route for drive storytelling, has sold me for this season's rather. Each of the cases starts with Shinosuke and the team taking on a case. There's something weird going on. They realize that it's 𝘯𝘦𝘦𝘥's work, and with Shinosuke's detective skills, he deducts who might be the real perpetrator. Oh my god, it's basically double! The police aspect for Drive is really refreshing to see. They need to do real work to know the suspect. The story won't progress if Shinosuke and their team sucks at their job. The villain won't show who they are. It's not like the villain will just show up in front of Shinosuke just because it's nearing the runtime of the episode. More people will die if Shinosuke doesn't figure it out. As the story progresses, new characters emerge, new plot points to be discovered, and we also discover a new different side from all these important characters. Basically, character development. We'll talk about character development as the video goes. Its story is simple, yet engaging enough to make you invested in Drive's world. You can pick it up at any time you want, if in case you drop the series, and you can kind of figure it out where the story progresses. Let's talk about the first arc, which I like to call it the introduction, which expands from episode 1 to the death of Chase. Yes, I'm gonna talk about spoiler in case you didn't read the warning. This first arc really just sells the idea that 𝘯𝘠𝘦𝘥 lives in this world. They are androids that want to take over the world. Their motivations were still unclear, and Shinosuke and the rest of the team are trying to figure it out. The pacing of this first arc is nice enough, not too fast and not too slow. The world building is not super complicated. Of course, many new forms and toys were introduced. As this season is an episodic show, there are not many things happening in the first arc. One case is for 2 episodes, and each of these cases are not connected. Mainly, the hero and the villain are just there, fighting each other. The big bad guys will just occasionally turn up to the scene and rambling some stuff, and sometimes they will fight the main character. Like I said, there are not many things happening in the first arc, story-wise, because the main plot doesn't progress that much until the second arc. I guess this first arc really just focuses on Shinosuke and Chase as a character. You want to see the growth of Shinosuke, you want to see how he is as a character, and this first arc really shows that well. And the same goes for Chase. You might see him as the recurring villain that only hinders the work for these polices, especially Shinosuke. And as the show goes on, he realized that he isn't the guy he used to be. And the search for his true self begins. I may sound that I didn't like the first arc. I may nitpick the first arc a lot because of these episodic elements that was heavily implied in this first arc. But rest assured, I love these episodic elements for Kamen Rider. Some of the cases are really fascinating because let me tell you that some of these cases are well thought out. The case with the judge is really interesting to watch. It is more on a drama side with some of Kamen Rider elements inside of it, but this episode really makes you appreciate more for the writer of this episode. And just like in any other Kamen Rider season, Of course, in the first arc, the second rider will be introduced. The introduction of 𝘋𝘙𝘐 is amazing. Really lightened up the mood for this first arc. He just got back from America and he decided that he wanted to help the police and of course Inosuke as the main rider. And thus 𝘋𝘙 joins the team. With Chase's memory surfacing, Medic restores Chase so that he won't remember his past. Then he became a killing machine again. Inosuke realizes that there's no other way and he had to fight him. As an F1 racer. Who do you think will win? A freaking Shinigami that kills everyone in his way, or an F1 racer? Inosuke also just realized that not all of 𝘰𝘠𝘦𝘥 are evil. He believes that he can reason with them, just like the case with Q-Taro. Well, now that Inosuke has defeated Chase, let's move on to the next arc. Oh yeah, he is still alive. Its second arc starts from episode 23 until the arrest of Nira. I'd say that the theme for this arc is leaning towards a more depressing / dark theme for the remaining runtime of the show. You can see here that in every episode, the story is getting more enthralling. The origins of the 𝘰𝘠𝘦𝘥, why is 𝘋𝘙 so obsessed with killing all 𝘰𝘠𝘦𝘥s, who is 𝘰𝘠𝘠𝘏 and the relationship he had with Inosuke's father, why Captain Nira is such an asshole, the relationship of 𝘋𝘙 and Kiriko, who's behind the global freeze incident, 𝘋𝘙 siding with the bad guys, etc. Many more. There's so many plot points to be covered. And for this section, I will provide some examples to support my opinion on why I think the second arc is the best one out of the three. The scene where Inosuke nearly lost his control when Nira provoked him is a really good scene. He's just a normal human. He can lose his temper. Episode 28, where 𝘋𝘙 was deceived by this girl, I forgot her name, is also a good scene. This shows how 𝘋𝘙 was really determined to save the girl's brother since he understands the bond between brother and sister. Nearing the end of the case, he's in a rage mode and he almost killed Chaser, but was saved by Inosuke. Episode 31 also shows how Inosuke can be stubborn as he wanted to corner 𝘰𝘠𝘠𝘏 while Bell doesn't want to, since he's afraid losing Inosuke in the process. Another one, where this boy, I forgot his name, wanted to find his father, but his memory got rewritten, shows just how evil is 𝘰𝘠𝘠𝘏. And a lot of things that I mentioned tells us some messages about grief, betrayal, the conflict between families and friends, and of course hatred. These messages were well shown and were not forced at all. To me, that's a good story writing. The death and comeback of Inosuke was stunning. It's to show that the protagonist of the show can be beaten and possibly killed. Was it cliché? Yeah, but was it the good kind of cliché? Absolutely. Let's move on and talk about our second and third rider of this season, 𝘋𝘙 and Chase. 𝘋𝘙's character development is great. He went from I can take as many 𝘰𝘠𝘦𝘥 as possible to I'm not strong enough. What should I do? He switched teams to gain trust from Brain, and he managed to take the iPad from Brain. He put up a strong face in front of his sister, although deep inside he is scared, sometimes not knowing what to do regarding his dad, his enemy, and his buddy, Chase. Anyway, Chase, in this second arc, is basically a good level-headed Kamen rider. He always thinks rationally, well, since he is a robot. He helps Inosuke, 𝘋𝘙, and the Special Division team with their cases. He learned how important family is, and was grateful to know about it. But that's pretty much it. By the way, I love how awkward and straightforward he is in this scene.
誰も聞かなかったからだ。
He's a robot. He has no emotion. but he knows that his job as a Kamen Rider is to help those who are in need. Heart and Brain are not as laid back as the first arc. Although Heart once again just being there not doing any meaningful move, Brain on the other hand got many development on his character and his power. At least he got his ultimate evolution. Medic, being Medic, just like in the first arc, not really doing anything meaningful. So 𝘰𝘀𝘀𝘴 fought 𝘰𝘀𝘀𝘏 and he managed to kill him with his new awakened power, where he merged with Belt and he got this new amazing suit, his final form. Okay, so good. 𝘰𝘀𝘀𝘏 is now defeated. What is left for 𝘰𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘴? Well, apparently, Nira is the culprit behind the death of 𝘰𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘴's death. The action behind Nira's motive was simple. It was jealousy, yet he killed his colleague. This shows how corrupted human minds can be, how far they're willing to take the risk as far as killing a person. Nira got caught red-handed, and he had to face 𝘰𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘴 and the gang. Second arc ends with the arrest of Nira, and he can't wait to see the showdown between 𝘯𝘠𝘦𝘦𝘥 and the riders. The final arc, which starts from episode 37 until episode 47, which is the death of 𝘠𝘦𝘦 and Heart. So far, what a great storytelling. I enjoy it very much. But how about this third arc? Well, not as good as the first two arcs, but it's still good and enjoyable regardless. We're nearing the end of the season, and things started heating up. We get to know better about Heart as his in-depth motives were revealed. As he rules over the world, he wants to keep humanity intact. If humanity is extinct, who's going to be there, witnessing their superiority? Heart wants this more than anyone, since he was the first 𝘯𝘠𝘦𝘥 that got treated horribly by his creator, none other than 𝘠𝘦. He wanted to show the world that 𝘯𝘠𝘦 is a far better race and above humanity. 𝘰𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘴 also realized how level-headed Heart is, that he isn't just some common evil villain. He respected Shin and was capable enough to know that not all humans are also bad. Brain and Medic also got another character development, showcasing just who is the man and woman that they copied. Medic, wanting her new ultimate super mega form, led her to be controlled by 𝘠𝘦. Brain, feeling empathy towards Medic, led to his death. And the sad part about this is that 𝘰𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘴 witnessed all of that in the span of 2 encounters with 𝘠𝘦. This really gives 𝘰𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘴 a whole new perspective regarding 𝘯𝘠𝘦𝘴. They understood sorrow, they understood death. None of them are more evil than 𝘠𝘦, who doesn't care who or what he faced. He wants to achieve his goal. He resented the fact that he has a family. It meant nothing to him. You can kinda see the similarities between 𝘯𝘠𝘦 and 𝘠𝘦. Both of them want to rule humanity, except that the other one chose an inhuman method and the other chose the more ethical route. Anyway, let's talk about 𝘠𝘦, the final antagonist for this season, which is okay, it's not the most interesting antagonist that I have seen in a writer show, but yeah, it's not the worst either. His main motive isn't very fleshed out. It's weak, it's kinda weak. He created 𝘯𝘠𝘦𝘴. He finds an entrepreneur, which is the human version of Heart. He got rejected because it's dangerous, and turns bad. But maybe it doesn't have to be a super meaningful and well-crafted reason. A simple reason is enough. Many real-life situations are about envy, resentment, and jealousy. This story refers more to the real world with real-life problems. And I think the simple reason suits the theme of Kamen Rider Drive. But for me, I wish it was more than that. let's move on to Go. Go's final showdown between him and his dad taught us that he is willing to throw everything just to stop his dad. Chase decided that he would sacrifice himself to protect Go, knowing Kiriko would be sad if Go dies. Until the very end, he helped humanity. He almost achieved his goal, which is to be more human. He learns what it means to be the protector of humanity. With the death of Chase, Go appreciates his presence and his body-like manner towards him. That even a robot can have a more human soul than the normal human. Rip Chase, my favorite third rider. Let's move on to Shinosuke's side. So there's this robot sentient called 𝘯𝘓𝘤𝘬. So Shinosuke, Medic, and Heart have to face this creature. And then Shinosuke almost died. And then Medic heals him. And basically she gave her life away to Shinosuke so that he could defeat this sentient. So Medic died. So it's up to both Heart and Shinosuke to face this sentient. So both of them are enraged because Medic just died, and Shinosuke used the ultimate final moveset. Sigma lost, and Shinosuke fell off from the building, but luckily, Heart saved him before he hit the ground. And when he wakes up, Heart was also there, waiting for him, because both of them has not settled their scores. The last battle is really emotional. Heart still wants to settle his scores with Shinosuke. But yeah, unfortunately his time ran out. Shinosuke, who just made a new friend through the last battle with Bano and the Sentient, dies in front of him. Shinosuke, who knew how corrupt the human heart is, he who believed that Roidmate and humans can coexist, he who knew that Roidmate were also the victims, can save Roidmate from disappearing. Both Shinosuke and Go experienced the same thing, the death of their friends right in front of their faces. This hits different. Roidmate, a race of machines, has extinct from the face of the earth. The last episode, which you may call it the prologue, is kinda meh. There's nothing much happened. Well, of course there's nothing much happened, that's the point of epilogue. It's just a special episode featuring Ghost as the next rider, while it is also the epilogue of Drive. It's fine, yada yada, they live happily ever after. So yeah, if I were to give the first and second arc a solid 9 out of 10, I will give this third arc maybe a 6.5 or maybe 7. Overall, it's a memorable season. I love this Kamen Rider. My first impression when seeing this Rider season wasn't that great. I hated the costume back then, it may still look silly now, but I've come to terms with that issue. The theme of the show, once again, is detective / police, and it's kinda episodic, sometimes it's not. I know Kuga and W already took that formula, and I thought it was kinda lazy coming from Toei. I was happy that what I got was a totally different from what I imagined in my mind. Great writing, great pacing, great plot, great acting. Yeah, it's kinda over the top because it's Japanese, and whenever you hear the acting from Japanese filmmaking industry, yeah, it's over the top, but I don't know, I just get used to it, I guess. But hey, the main guy, Ryoma Takeuchi as Shinosuke, Ryo Uchida as Kiriko, and Yu Inaba as Go are great actors. The action is very Neo Heisei-like. Over-the-top costumes, weapons, jingles, yeah, that's basic for Neo Heisei. At the end of the day, it's a kid show, a Kamen Rider show. It is not a masterpiece, not a groundbreaking show, But nevertheless, I really enjoy the show. I feel these characters, it made me laugh, it made me emotional. Kamen Rider Drive may not be the first Kamen Rider show that I've watched, but it remains as one of my favorite Rider show. Heck, maybe even my favorite show of all time. Thank you guys for sticking around until the end. Thank you for watching, I don't know, this kinda ranting and review about Kamen Rider Drive. Any suggestions, critics, and advice from you guys would help me a lot. And yeah, see you in the next one.